Good morning. It's Wednesday morning, 9 a.m., at least in this time zone, and welcome to 1 Million Cups. This is a forum for entrepreneurs, and let's kick it off. The first thing to do is to check in. If you haven't already done so, point your phone at that QR code, and if you check in on 3 different times, you'll get the pen, and 6 different times, you'll get the coveted 1 Million Cups notebook. So really, don't fight each other over that. And if any of you need to claim your pens or notebooks, you have some, Lisa?
Yes.
Okay, so just go to Lisa and say, I want my pen or notebook. All right. And here we are. Here's our mission. It's to lower the barrier of access to education, resources, and connection for new and aspiring entrepreneurs. The entrepreneurial journey is a lonely one. You're going to need some help, and you're going to need that from different people. Yes, we have some assertion there. Okay, and you're going to need some help from people who know things that you don't know, and that's why we're here.
Sorry, Paul. That's my fault.
Okay, and how do we work toward that mission? We are supported all across the country by the Kauffman Foundation, and they have a back end that helps us organize this, and they also train the organizers in how to coach the presenters. So that makes a uniform program across all instances of 1 Million Cups in the United States, and but also every community is unique and has its own strengths, and that incorporates well into the 1 Million Cups framework. All right, we are the top chapter in New Mexico, and we achieve that by having a small denominator. There are other chapters scattered throughout the Southwest. I've been to some of these. If your travels take you somewhere where there's a 1 Million Cups chapter and it's 9 a.m. on a Wednesday, I encourage you to drop in. They won't be strangers. They're just friends you haven't met. You'll recognize the format. You'll see the questions are pretty much the same, and you'll probably meet some new and interesting people. There we go. And what are our key pillars? These are presentations, not pitches. In a pitch, your goal is usually to extract money from people who have a lot of it and don't know a lot about your company. In a presentation here, especially for this audience, it's about figuring out how you're going to go forward. What do you need? Is there something the community can do for you? And that's the question that people ask. So we are asking people to expose their vulnerabilities and challenges and ask for help from the community. And in return, we ask the community to be somewhat gentle in delivering that. These are about authentic connections, not networking. We have brought people onto our company from people we've met at 1 Million Cups, and I think it's a good way to get to know people over the course of several weeks or months and see if they have the same vibe that you do and they know things that you don't. So I encourage you to talk to as many people as you can. It's run for the community, by the community. The organizers are volunteers, which is not to say we don't get anything out of it. I've gotten a lot out of being a volunteer organizer for 1 Million Cups. And we're radically and intentionally inclusive. We're really proud of that. All kinds of people are welcome here. All kinds of businesses are welcome here. Mom and pop brick and mortars, whiteboard companies that have a little bit of grant funding, or the big boys that have gone all the way and drop in every once in a while to show us how it's done. Everybody's welcome here. So here's a summary of our mission. Basically, it's be educational, be helpful, and remember there are people who you could learn from, but there are also people that could benefit from things that you know, as long as you deliver that in a friendly and a gentle way. So we like to have this be a welcoming space and a place where people can bridge gaps in their knowledge and fill them in. So you don't have to do it alone. We're the community. It's easy to apply to present. If you have a for-profit business defined as a business that sells goods and services for more than it costs to produce them, and you've sold something to someone who isn't your mom, you're welcome to present here. Sometimes we can bend the rules a little bit. If you're a startup and you've gotten some external funding to fund your idea and you're not in market yet, that's an interesting place to be. And so we will assign you a coach, and we'll get you to nudge yourself from pitch format into presentation format to work for 1 Million Cups. And these are our organizers. I'm Paul Sauter with Equiseek, Lisa Atkins with Fatpipe, Eric Renz-Whitmore, not online today, Danielle, who's right there, Sonia, probably online today, just published the last book in her trilogy, or fourth book in her series, right? Keiko and Oscar, the founders of Legacy Family Documentaries, making everybody look good and helping them tell their stories. So any of those folks are really helpful, and they could coach you into giving good presentation. We also like to thank our sponsors. Fatpipe has been our sponsor for coming up on 10 years now, right? And we could not have had 1 million cups without a free meeting space to work in, which is this one. So thanks again to Fatpipe. Dry Heat Photography, our newest photographer. Also, it was seamless. You made us look good last week, and we're looking forward to you making us look good every week. More Than Organized, Miriam Ortiz-Pino, organizing your stuff, your thoughts, and providing creamer. The Foundation for Sustainable Living, hey Franklin, providing the coffee, so if you're having a sip, turn around and say hi. Noventum Custom Software, providing donuts, but also software that doesn't suck. Minuteman Press for putting ink on paper. If you need to put ink on paper, get in touch with them. So thanks to all those folks, and thanks for joining us. And I'll hand it off to, who is your coach?
Danielle.
Oh, it's all yours.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I am super excited today to introduce this next presenter and her business. It was interesting, as we were going through the presentation, it was hard for me not to get a little bit emotional because it hits a little close to home. So, without further ado, Miss Coco.
Thank you, Danielle. I couldn't have asked for a better introduction. Good morning, everyone.
Point your thing towards this, and I'm going to try not to
Okay.
touch the screen. Paul's in charge of the waiting room.
Thanks, Paul. So I'd like to start off with asking all of you to close your eyes for a moment. So I'd like you to imagine an ideal world. Maybe you're picturing a world where everyone is happy and healthy. Maybe you're imagining world peace. Now, open your eyes. This is not the world, or even the country that we live in. Over half of Americans feel lonely. Over half of Americans suffer from a preventable chronic health condition like heart disease or diabetes. And when it comes to world peace, with everything that's happening in Israel, I'm sure that's the furthest thing from our minds this week. When we think about the gap between the world that we live in and our ideal world, it might seem insurmountable. But I believe that the solution is quite simple. If we ensure that every baby feels loved, we will have a happier and healthier world. And yes, one day, maybe even world peace. Research shows that the relationship between you and the person who took care of you when you were a baby has impacted and will continue to impact your health and happiness across your lifetime. When a caregiver is sensitive and responsive to the baby they care for, it results in a strong bond between the baby and their caregiver that serves as a kind of psychological vaccine that protects the baby emotionally. The benefits of this strong bond are both immediate and long-lasting. Caregivers who have a strong bond with their baby are pleased to discover that the baby cries less at 1 year old and is more cooperative as a toddler. But the benefits to the baby themselves are lifelong. What's more, a baby who has a strong bond with their caregiver is likely to go on to have a strong bond with their own baby someday. You can think of it like if one person gets vaccinated, their descendants are likely to inherit the immunity. In this way, the quality of the bond between a caregiver and the baby they care for is not random, nor is it based on an instinct that some people happen to be born with and some aren't. The ability to form a strong bond with a baby is a learned behavior that is typically passed from caregiver to baby. But what if someone didn't learn this behavior from their caregiver? At least 40% of people in the US fall into this category. Luckily, these people are still able to grow the skills that they need to have a strong bond with their baby. I'm Coco, and I'm the founder of Sensiboo. Sensiboo is a system that's designed to teach the 4 skills that caregivers need to create a strong bond with a baby, including sensitivity, trustworthiness, autonomy, and responsiveness, or STAR for short, in 3 simple steps that results in a STAR-certified caregiver. The first step is preparation. The Baby Bonding Workbook prepares future parents and other infant caregivers to create a strong bond with the baby through education and self-work. The second step is practice. A deck of 40 activity cards will provide caregivers with a set of actions that they can take to create a strong bond with their baby. And the last step will involve coaching, where caregivers receive feedback and assessment that helps them to solidify that strong bond. Now that you know a little bit about Sensiboo, I feel like I'm probably starting to sound like the poster child for my generation. A classic young person who's really into mental health, and maybe even one who kind of seems to have their head in the clouds. And that might be true. But I'd like to tell you a little bit more about the path that took me to developing Sensiboo and why I took that path. Before I dive into this story, though, I do want to provide a trigger warning. This story includes a brief mention of suicidal thoughts, and so if that's something that makes you at all uncomfortable, please feel free to step out of the room, or if you're joining us virtually, to turn off the sound for just about the next 30 seconds. So, despite a challenging home life, growing up, people would have described me as positive, hardworking, and resilient. At 23, I had just finished putting myself through college, where I studied marketing management, and I was about to start a great job as a business strategist. I knew I was supposed to be happy, but I wasn't. Instead, I felt lonely and hopeless. In fact, this photo was taken just days before I would find myself contemplating suicide. At this point, I was desperate for an answer to why I felt this way. So I went where I've always gone with my biggest questions, to the public library. At the library, I discovered this book called Strange Situation by Bethany Saltman. This book introduced me to something called attachment, which is the science of bonding. And specifically, I learned about how important that bond is between a baby and their caregiver in their first year of life, and that when that bond is strong and high quality, that it results in something called secure attachment in a baby that is a lifelong inner state. I also realized that I did not have this so-called secure attachment, and that this was in a large way contributing to my poor mental health. I wondered, what can I do about this? I went on to discover that there is a process by which someone who did not have a strong bond with their caregiver as a baby can, as an adult, come to feel as though they did. This process is difficult. For me, it involves 2 years of intense psychotherapy that was based on attachment. At the end of that experience, though, I had developed that internal state that I could have had from infancy had I had a strong bond. One where I feel confident and safe, or in a word, secure. But at the end of this experience, I fully understood why researchers say that it's very unlikely that if someone does not develop secure attachment as an infant, that they'll develop it as an adult, because it's an extremely difficult process. So after I went through this experience, I felt like someone who could have gotten a vaccine for a common childhood infectious disease like chickenpox, but instead had to go through having the disease in order to gain the immunity. It was a lot more painful and difficult, and I felt like I, like many people, would have preferred to have just gotten the vaccine as a child. So while I was going through this experience of therapy and learning about attachment, I started to read a lot of academic papers about attachment. And I knew that while I felt better after going through therapy, there was something that was still bothering me. And that was that I had read that even though I felt better, I still have a propensity to not give my future baby secure attachment, to not create a strong bond with them, because my caregiver didn't create one with me. Think about it like learning to read. If no one ever taught me how to read, how could I teach someone else? But one day I discovered that I can actually learn how to give my baby secure attachment someday. I learned that this is done through something that's called an attachment intervention program. Several of these attachment intervention programs have been developed and scientifically tested with the finding that they do reliably result in the development of secure attachment in infants. When I discovered this, I wondered, why is no one talking about this? Well, it turns out that no one's talking about it because these intervention programs are costly and difficult to scale. They require one-on-one, in-person facilitation with a trained facilitator. And becoming a facilitator costs over $5,000. For this reason, participation in these programs is usually limited to a pretty small number of only the most vulnerable American families. I believe that access to information should not be what stands between a baby and feeling loved. That's why I created Sensiboo, designed it based on successful interventions, but made it scalable and affordable. If you want to create a better future for the world, support an infant caregiver. While just 2% of the US population, child caregivers hold the future of the world in their hands, literally. I designed Sensiboo to support caregivers at scale, but I know that we all know someone with a baby who could use a little extra help. So I hope you'll join me in hugging the whole world, one baby at a time.
Thank you. That was fantastic. So we have a couple really big questions. So New Mexico's biggest question of all, green or
We're
red?
gonna have question and answer.
I'm totally jumping the gun. I wanted to get to what can the community do for you, because we missed that in there. But while we're here, go ahead and give me this. I don't know why I jumped up here.
Form a line and we'll take questions from people online too.
I know, we're just so excited to talk about my challenges. Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Athena Christodoulou, co-founder of several companies, including Udorami, which is an app for list making. And this makes me remember my children. I have 3 sons, and they are very much working parents. And so how does your app help working parents who don't have that 24/7 access to their child, because we as a nation do not have paid medical family leave or an annual leave for the mom or dad? They were fortunate to have 12 weeks because they live in California, but what would you say to that? And I have other questions, but I'll let others ask them first.
No, that's an extremely good question, and that is really one of the reasons why I wanted to develop Sensiboo, because now more than ever, parents need a simple way to reliably help their child to grow up to be happy and healthy. I would say that the number one thing that I always talk about is the fact that it's most important that whoever is caring for the baby most of the time is sensitive, responsive, trustworthy, and supports the baby's autonomy. So that could be the parent, it could be another caregiver as well. In the future, I'm hoping to develop additional products that will support paid caregivers, because I know that a lot of families are in this very situation where it's not the parents that are spending most time with the baby, perhaps. I would say specifically my resources are designed to be very simple to use, very quick and easy to absorb, so that the principles can be learned and applied easily. But I completely understand and where you're coming from, and I think that it's just most important that we equip any person who's caring for a baby with these skills.
Sue Perlosny, you have a question. You can go next.
Thanks. It may have just been partially answered, but I was wondering, how does someone access your services? Are you only virtual? Are you doing interaction one-on-one? And how are you funded? Are you funded as a nonprofit? Do they pay for your services?
Yeah, those are all really good questions. So first of all, I'll start from the last one and work backwards, I think. So I'm a for-profit company. I am a social enterprise, and my customers purchase my products. So as I mentioned, there's ultimately going to be 3 steps in the Sensiboo system. The first one has been developed and launched. It's available on Amazon. Right now it's a digital workbook, but eventually I would like to also make it a physical workbook that people can order. The second step is practice, which I mentioned is through a set of activity cards, which actually I'll talk more about that when we talk about my biggest challenge at the moment, but that's also a product that will be available for sale for caregivers. And then the last step, which is the coaching part, that part's still in the ideation stage, and that's something that would be more, to your point, more of that coaching, but that's definitely something that I feel like I am going to need a little bit of a bigger team and more support to execute on successfully. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, I'm JP. I'm with Amazing Life and Enchanted Lands Music, and it was an amazing presentation, and it brought a lot of questions. A couple of them were already addressed. So one of them, how do you help to implement this type of system in like the foster care situation?
That's a great question. I think that an emerging area of opportunity for me is to have partnerships with the government, possibly to get more grants to be able to execute partnerships like that. Today, I don't have partnerships with the foster system, but definitely see that as a huge opportunity.
And also, do you have an education program for, and this is kind of like, sharing a little bit about my story. I'm from a family with, alcoholism. And so no matter how much a mother loves her baby, the other situation in the family kind of offsets the bonding through the strain and the situation. So how can you help, I guess, educate and encourage that type, like a healthier kind of functional family unit? Because it's not just the mother taking care of the child.
Yeah, that's a great question. Interestingly, research shows that, like as I mentioned, the bond that you had with your caregiver largely determines what kind of bond you'll have with your baby. But other things that can also influence that bond, to your point, are the kind of socioeconomic and other factors in the home. I would say, again, I always recommend that anyone who will be caring for the baby be educated in these skills. Because you're right, it's not always going to be one person, it's not always going to be the same person. I would say the other thing is that in my products, I really focus on what to do instead of focusing on what not to do. Because I know that there's a lot of different situations, a lot of different families and homes. And so if we can just give people some simple skills and easy to implement techniques, like with my activity cards, those are things that anyone can do, hopefully regardless of how they're feeling or what else is going on.
Thank you. I'll leave some questions for some other people.
Thank
Appreciate
you very
it.
much.
Hi, Paul Sauter with Equiseek, and the etiquette is to let people know your name and who you're with. So thank you for the presentation. So I wonder how much of the part of the process for people is looking backwards. So if they didn't get the bond that they need, maybe it's not because those were bad people. Maybe they were doing the best that they could with what they had. So part of it is looking back and forgiving, right? Is that part of it?
Yeah, I'm really glad that you bring that up. It's absolutely a part of it. In fact, it's a part of every successful intervention program that's been developed. I think you bring up a good point that I believe that everyone does their best as a parent. Everyone wants to be a good parent. I don't ever look at any parent who's raised children, anything, and be judgmental, because everyone's doing the best that they can. And I think that's important to remember. The other thing that I'll say is that my baby bonding workbook serves as, in a way, like the kind of self-work or a little bit psychotherapy component of my program. And so it's similar to other interventions. They also have that kind of component of self-reflection and self-work.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, my name is Jay Pullen. I'm with New Path Wellness, a name that I haven't actually introduced to this group, but it's just a new name. But also I'm associated with an organization called the Attachment Healing Center. My activity is all volunteer. We work with the kids that did not have the benefit of the parents that you're trying to train. We get the worst end of it. And So number one, I have an immense appreciation for what you're doing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Secondly, I'd be interested in knowing what your messaging is to reach out to the public, because the tendency is for people in general to think about, it's those people that have the problems, not me. The typical scenario with parents that have problematic kids, they want to drop them off at their therapist and say, fix my kid. And the problem is really not the kid, the problem is the parent. So the messaging that I think you need to be getting out is going to be really, really tricky. So I'd be interested in knowing what kind of messaging you're using. Maybe we could use, maybe we can exchange ideas, I don't know, but I agree with your assumption that if we could get this out to the public, it would be world-changing, but the messaging is going to be really important.
Yeah, absolutely. So your question is, how do I message this to customers? I think the messaging depends on what customer segment that I'm talking to. There's definitely some that are easier to talk to than others. But I will say, just high level, to your point, it's easier to talk to a customer with this when you have this type of product at a certain stage. So for me, that's why I started my system, or designed my system to start before a person even has a child. So it's for people who are, like me, who don't have kids yet. Maybe they aren't even expecting, but they're thinking about having kids in the future. They can do the baby bonding workbook, and they can kind of get themselves in the mindset of like, okay, these are the things I should be thinking about as I'm planning to have children. And then it goes with them throughout that baby's first year of life. The new mom industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry, so we know that like new parents really want to prepare themselves. And so for me, it's like, new parents are throwing so much advice and opinions, and it's like, can we just give them one resource that we're saying, this is scientifically tested. If you do this, it will support the development of secure attachment in your child, and it has lifelong impact. And so I think that's kind of how I try to message it in general, but specifically it does depend on whether I'm talking to someone with background and attachment, parents who are aware of it or not. It just varies a little bit.
Debbie, I'll get to you right after Athena.
Okay, Athena Christodoulou again, with Cecil Power as well. My next thought is that the perfect parent, at least for me, was God. Okay, and it sounds like you are trying to help people reparent themselves so that they can be good parents. And maybe a good starting point or target market, because you always want to start with one niche and then move out, is possibly those who are affiliated with churches. focuses on the family to begin with, and many come, it's not a place for Museum of Saints, it's a place for sick sinners, right? So that's that. The other thing is I wanted to see if you're aware that the state is starting to come into a lot of money for early childhood care and education that they're putting out, they're starting to launch.
Yeah, those are good points. As far as the focus on churches, I appreciate that advice. I'm a person of faith myself, and Sensiboo kind of came out of my personal why, which was I wanted to show love to as many people as possible in the world. And so I think that would probably also resonate with a lot of other faith-based people. To your second point about early childhood education, and care, yes, exactly. So I worked as a business strategist in the childcare industry before starting Sensiboo. And so I think a little bit of also where Sensiboo came from is a little bit of my frustration and with that industry. I think there's a lot of opportunity, especially in caring for infants. Infant wait lists for care, you might be aware of this, but infant wait lists are over a year long. So people have to start looking for care for their baby as soon as they become pregnant. And additionally, we know that a lot of times, even when that people can find care, it's not high quality. So I think that's a long-term thing, but I think that it would be great if someday Sensiboo could also provide, trained caregivers for infants. So
The state already does home visits from day one, so that might be an in.
yes, yeah. If you have any connection to the kind of home visit kind of industry isn't the right word, but kind of community here, I find it really fascinating that is so robust in New Mexico, and I would really like to learn more about that. Thank you.
Debbie Kruzik online, you have great question. Debbie, can you hear us? She's still there.
Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, now we can.
Sorry about that. It just kind of falls along the same two questions that were just asked a little bit ago, but my sister has run a preschool for like 30 years, and they do all the training, they have to do the training, they're certified to the highest level and all, but the disconnect is when the kids go home and the parents don't do all those good things. It's almost feels like you're just, it's very disheartening. So that to me is the big thing I see. And maybe what you're trying to do and what's really going on in the world out there.
Yeah, Debbie, that's a good point. As I mentioned earlier, my system involves 4 skills that anyone can learn, and the idea being that when you learn those skills, you become a STAR certified caregiver. What I love about my system is that anyone can become STAR certified caregiver, and I think everyone should, everyone who's caring for an infant, so that, like to your point, infants will get consistent quality care, whether it's at home or at a child care center, that they'll always be in the care of someone who's sensitive, trustworthy, values their autonomy, and is responsive.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning, I'm Clifton Chadwick with Comunicaciones Coco Pelli. It sounds like your college degree gave you the perfect foundation for doing this business, and you've got great answers to most people. The thing that strikes me is that the people absolutely most in need of what you offer are going to be the people who are absolutely the most resistant. And so a lot of these opportunities to do this institutionally strike me as a good sideways opportunity to get to people. And relative to the question about what is your messaging, I also wanted to ask about what channels you're messaging. How are you going to reach that person who is so in need of what you offer but doesn't even know it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Some of those, I'm sure that some of those institutional avenues would be very good opportunities. I will say that those are often more the populations that are served by traditional interventions, luckily, which doesn't mean that there's not a place for me, but I did want to make a product that should try to reach everyone, and then go into those maybe more focused avenues. I'm sorry, can you tell me your other question one more time? The messaging, yeah,
I guess how do you reach that person
yeah.
who, because they don't have the appropriate bonding, is absolutely got a wall between them and your message?
Yeah, that's a good question. I didn't have a chance to get into like the opposite of what can happen when someone can happen when someone doesn't have secure attachment, and there's a couple of different predictable kind of ways that they go with their mindset or it's what's called their inner working model. And so that kind of influences actually the reception that they'll have to advice about things like raising their child. So interestingly, we think about like a helicopter parent or a parent who's like maybe a little too hands-off. Like those are two directions that you could go in. So sometimes it does result in the parent being almost over interested in parenting advice. But to your point, a lot of times it goes the other way where it's no interest in that kind of advice. I will say, as far as my messaging, I try to use a couple of different avenues. The first one that I use is TikTok, because a lot of people my age are using that, and it can help me reach a really broad audience. I try to do skits that are funny, demonstrating interactions between parents and their baby, to kind of just capture people's attention and keep them engaged. And then at the end, it's here's why. Here's why this is important. Another thing that I do is I participate in a lot of forums where people are already asking questions. So that helps me to reach the people that I know are looking for help. But to your point, it's going to be really hard, if not impossible, to help someone who doesn't want to be helped.
My name is Chuck Holman. I'm the author of Ask Who Shall Receive. And my question to you is that what is your biggest challenge that you're facing now in going forward with this? Because I think this is a phenomenal thing. I mean, you're going to be able to change the next generation. And I'm sensing that the attachment is like the first year or so. And I've done some studies that said that the first 7 years of a child's life sets them for the rest of their life. So after the first year, have you done anything for the next 6 years? And what is your biggest challenge today we can help you with?
Thank you. I would say that I chose not to focus on anything beyond the first year, since there's so much research that shows that it is that first year that is critically important. Attachment, secure attachment, is something that spans across demographics. It spans across cultures. We see reliably, whether you are a child that's born in a village in Africa or you're a child that's born in New York City, that if you develop secure attachment in the first year of your life, you are more likely to be happy and healthy throughout your life, wherever you are. So that's why at this point I'm focusing on the first year, but I definitely can see some opportunity to continue to support that relationship going forward.
And what's your biggest challenge?
Yeah, that's a good question. You want to get into it?
Yeah,
Okay, so I have a few challenges. Do you mind sharing my slides again, Danielle? Sorry, Lisa, thank you.
Let me close this chat windows. Okay.
Let me see if I can get it to work this time. Yeah, perfect. That's perfect. Thank you very much. I'm definitely facing a few challenges. Three that I wanted to highlight, or three opportunities I wanted to highlight today, is first that I'm looking for a co-founder. I mentioned that my background is in marketing and business strategies, so I'm looking for a co-founder with more expertise in child development or developmental psychology. There's one person in particular that I have found on LinkedIn that is here in Albuquerque and would be a perfect fit. So I thought it can't hurt to mention them and see if anyone knows them. Secondly, I would really love your help in solving what I consider to be one of my most important, if not my most important challenges right this second. So as you'll recall, I mentioned that the second step of my program is practice. I call it practice, and it's going to be a set of activity cards that parents and other caregivers can do with their baby from age 0 to 1. So I really pride myself on being a digital first company because, like I said, I want to create the greatest possible access to these resources. So with that being said, my first product, my baby bonding workbook, is currently digital. So now, as I think about making these activity cards, I am currently planning to make this a physical product, but as I'm sure many of you know, that comes with a lot of challenges around managing inventory and holding inventory, all those kinds of things. Luckily, I think it would be kind of a fulfilled by Amazon thing, so I wouldn't have to manage a lot of the shipments, but nevertheless, it does require an investment even to make the product, fairly significant investment for me since I'm self-funded. So with that being said, I would love your advice on if you think it's better to continue down the path of being a digital-first company, providing these resources, including the activity cards digitally, or if you think it would be valuable to expand into having a physical product.
I think having a physical product would be great because kids, we need interaction. We don't need screens when we're children. We need something to interact with and to actually engage us.
Coco, repeat that for the online audience. And if you have a comment, please come up here and say it on the microphone for the online. Can you repeat what he said for them?
Yeah. So he was just saying that he thinks it would be really valuable to have a physical product because we don't need to be spending any more time staring at screens. A great point. We need to be spending time, looking at other people, especially the baby we're caring for. And physical cards might create less of a barrier than like a cell phone or other digital device.
Brian Steiner, Noventum Custom Software. I have something related to that. Have you heard of Amazon's print-on-demand services?
Yeah, I have.
So I think that might be a way that you could digitally lay out these physical products and avoid the capital outlay for like large print batches and things like that. I mean, they take a tremendous amount of the unit cost, but it's basically nothing to get started.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
And
Coco, neither of these people are here today, but we have two people in our community, Sonia Dewing, who is one of our organizers, who can help you get to production, right, Paul? She's an author, and she'll help you, what's the term I'm looking for? No, not market. Yeah, self-publish your book. And then we have a printer, Carrie Vender with the city, who just bought Minuteman Printing.
Okay.
She's so creative, and I heard news on Facebook that she's quitting the city to go work full-time for Minuteman, and she's a mom, and so she might be a great resource. Maybe you find a way to locally produce them and sell them online. I'm really interested in your product because I found out 3 weeks ago that I'm going to be a grandmother, and I'm really excited for your activity cards, so I need to get my hands on those. Let's go get with Carrie right away. And my son's daycare provider, she was an amazing woman, and she still is in business today. And there was a member in our community who came up to me a few weeks ago and said, "Did you know that my son's daycare provider was your son's daycare provider?" Like 26 years later. So that's really cool. She's a neat lady, and I will definitely share this with her because she's definitely got the skills. And he used to call us both mama. So yeah, it was sweet.
That's amazing. It's so special, and I think it really highlights the fact that I believe anyone can become equipped to be to have a strong bond, a high quality bond with a baby. So I really appreciate that story.
yeah. All right, are we done? Okay. Oh, one more.
Hello, Coco.
Good morning.
Good morning. I already meet you, Humberto Morales and Embryonics. Oh, just some thoughts about. It's amazing, great presentation. I think as other ones have a big potential. I just want to address you I think as someone else told the physical product could be great. And my thought is because having a FaceTime, an attachment, that's a very strong world need to be physical. Then I think you can go also kind of thinking a kind of agency. I think you have a lot of potential, like people that they don't create bound. They are not focused on the emotional needs of the kid. And neurodevelopment go from 0 to 6 years, 7 years old. Then, as you describe, probably it's a cycle. Like the caregiver didn't have this ability or skill, and probably the previous one neither. But there's some studies like, as you're getting older, I mean, there's some psychological background on this. But as you're getting older, people improve. Then you can go, and I think you have a big market on grandparents and teachers. I have a lot of friends that they are teachers and early caregivers, and they are very focused. Oh, this kid doesn't obey. Probably it's a foster kid that changed for houses, and they need to be focused not like in the emotional needs of that kid, not in the emotional needs of the adult, like, hey, he's not obeying, she's not obeying. Then I think you have that two channels also, and probably an agency like could train grandparents and caregivers, because it will be very difficult that the parent that is failing will accept that it's wrong. And that's a big challenge, and well, for sure you will figure it out. And well, my best wishes.
Thank you.
You're welcome, thanks.
You sparked more questions. That's right.
Hi. I'm Chuck Holman, and before I retired, I was a wealth transfer practitioner. And one of the things I noticed is the seniors that I worked with, they love their grandchildren much more than their children. They wish they could just skip that phase of their life. And so my question is, after the last person, is that she just realized she's going to be a grandmother. What is the approximate cost for somebody to sponsor your program for their grandchild? Is it $100, $200, whatever it is, to sponsor your program for their grandchild?
Well, first of all, as it exists today, my program, since we have one product, is $7.99, so it's quite affordable. It's available on Amazon.
$7.99?
Yep, yep. Yep, so I really wanted to make my first product really accessible. Yeah, really accessible. Also just to raise awareness of what I'm trying to do. I think ultimately, so the second product I'm planning to price around $30, which will be the flashcards based on similar products. And then long term, like I mentioned, I do want to have more of a one-on-one ongoing coaching program, probably delivered virtually. That would be kind of a subscription model. That would be, at this point, my most expensive product, but that's still to be determined. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Affordable.
And in the baby bonding workbook, I do mention that I recommend that anyone who's going to be caring for the baby also go through the workbook, whether it be a grandparent, outside caregiver, so everyone can benefit.
I'm Dr. Norm Dawson. I'm with drnormsconnections.com. I'm in the dementia defense business. Got a bunch of kids, and I've been through what you're talking to. That's great. I love your presentation, very polished, and I always admire young people like you who just kind of get in there and go for it and overcome the challenges. The question I have is, it's called Jedi. Your target, I think your target is people who have been messed up for a variety of reasons, either economically or drugs or addictions or abuse or whatever. And those people really need what you have to offer. How do you, and Jedi means justice, equity, diversified, and inclusion. How is your message going to get to those people, because you have a very polished, nice program, and it looks like it's just for people that are already economically advantaged. They have the money, the resources. Yeah, I'm going to get pregnant here. I'd like to take care of my kid. But the people that are out there that are just, they're all messed up. How do you share that information with that group, or do you want to?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right that there are populations of people who could use my product or benefit from my product more than others. But as you'll recall, actually at least 40% of the US falls into this population. Now, not all of those people will have children, but we can, all the same, it's a very large number, including but not limited to those populations of people. To answer your question about how do I reach the most vulnerable people, so first of all, like I said, I especially the first step in my program, which I think might be considered the most important step because it does involve a lot of the self-work and the education. I made that, I think, very affordable at $8. And I often run promotions as well, so people can get it for even less expensive if needed. The other thing that I do is I have several free resources on my website. And so when I go into like forums and talk to people, sometimes people are saying, like, I can't afford a therapist. I can't afford to buy books and things to help me prepare to become a parent. I can't even afford to buy my future baby like some clothes. And so a lot of times that's really why I started creating those resources, so that even if you can't afford to buy my book, you can go and use my worksheets. And a lot of people have told me that they found those very helpful. And so that's one of the things I think I'm most proud of at this stage.
Good, thank you.
I think so.
Can you put up her contact?
Sure.
Okay, now that I've jumped the gun, now we're back to New Mexico's most famous question. Red or green?
It's a really hard decision, but I guess I'll say green today.
Very good. And I think we've gone over your challenges, and if anybody knows this doctor that she's spoken of, and anybody wants to offer more thoughts about your cards versus digital, that would be great. But thank you so much. This was awesome.
Thank you, Danielle. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, I have maybe a few events we can look at. Let's see. Coco, I'm so excited for your flashcards. I could see like Sunday night dinner, pulling out a card, playing with the baby. Sorry. Got baby on my brain.
Thank you.
Okay. They're due May 2nd. Yeah. All right. So Barbara Dawson's Authentic Communication in the Sales Process workshop is today. She's coming up to tell us more.
That's your Fatpipe.
Hi there, Barbara Dawson with Purple Mulch, and this morning at 11:30 to 1 o'clock we're doing authentic communication. And some of you have taken my class before. Come again. You never step into the same river twice, so it will be different because there'll be different people in the room. So if you've got time today, come. And someone just said to me, if I didn't register, can I come anyway? Yes. And grab the QR code and register if you can. But it's really about communicating more effectively with people. There's conversations going on in our heads that we need to learn how to get a little quieter so we can hear the person we're speaking with. Coco, beautiful presentation. I really loved your messaging. And I would love to have you there to have you also experience how do you really get people to get what you get. Thanks, Lisa.
All right. New Mexico Out Business Alliance has a matchmaking event with golf. If anybody wants this list, just email me at lisa@fatpipebq.com and I'd be happy to share it. Annual NMFIC, that's in Mexico. I think we did this last time. I couldn't remember what NMIFC stand for. Transforming Communities Through Innovative Financing, October 18th and 19th. Rainforest Student Pitch Competition on August 24th. I don't know if you have to be a student to apply to pitch there, but looks like a pretty good prize, a 5K. Albuquerque Business First 2023 Fall Women's Summit at the Sandia Golf Club. NMSU has their Scale Up Pitch competition at the Electric Playhouse on October 26th. UNM Center for Responsible Entrepreneurship, Meet the Entrepreneurs Higher Education Center in Santa Fe. NABO has their annual Speak Out event where you get to talk to the legislators. Follow that link for the date. And then this was a cool one, anyone who's looking for help with their IP, but there's intellectual property law section of the New Mexico State Bar and the UNM Law Schools hosting an annual intellectual property law clinic, so you can go and get some free law advice, which is hard to get. So I'd recommend if you're working on any IP that you hit them up and join that conference. All right, Paul, we did good today. It's only a few minutes to 10. We almost filled the whole hour.
So speaking of events, I'd really like to endorse the Arrowhead Scale Up Pitch competition, which is a week from tomorrow. I've been in their program. I found it tremendously helpful. They brought in some fantastic resources. In the interest of full disclosure, you know, sometimes here, we're up here to celebrate our accomplishments, and sometimes you stub your toe. So I applied to that, and they didn't accept me. But using the Buddhist practice of non-judgment, I don't know why that is. It may be because they consider me graduated, or they consider me hopeless. But I'm going to find out a week from tomorrow when I see who was selected to be in the pitch competition. So remember, it's okay to fall down, you have to get back up, but the easiest way is to not regard it as a fall, to say they didn't tell you anything. Don't put a frame around it, making it good or bad. Just look at it neutrally. Yes, we have people that endorse this. Okay, so when stuff happens, it happens. The question is, how are you going to respond to the changed circumstances? And, you know, Coco, you have filled the hour with people responding, so that doesn't always happen. Thank you very much. And I was reminded during your talk of a spectacular case history. Most of you know of Richard Branson of Virgin Galactic, who's been launching people into space or near space, depending on your definition, from the spaceport. And you can contrast that person with two other well-known famous entrepreneurs, one of whom has a new biography out by Walter Isaacson, whose behavior is very different. And if those of you who remember Branson's first launch of carrying people into near space, what's the first thing he said when he came down off of that? Does anybody remember? He just ran bouncing off the tarmac with a great big, you can see his molars, smile on his face, and he thanked his mother. Of all the people that put him there, he thanked his mother, and you could see him just beaming about it. It was not insincere. His mother made it possible for him to do all of the things that he did in his life, in contrast to the other two people that I won't mention, who are not healthy, clearly. I mean, you can tell that from their public behavior. So wouldn't it be a different world if the captains of industry, who are held up as examples of how to succeed in business, were well and healthy? And that's the kind of world I'd like to see. See you next week.
Hello, my name is Ken Jackson. I run a podcast called Raising the Bar, TKJE. TheKJEffect.com is where you can find me. Professional speaker, published author. I've been coming to 1 Million Cups for over 3 to 4 years now, and I have always found help, assistance, and knowledge from everyone that attends, and I enjoy showing up because it's always a positive atmosphere that helps me get through the day, throughout the week, and I will continue to come back. Thank you.
Perfect. Hi, my name is Penny. I'm with Transitions in Senior Care, and I help families get into communities, get the care they need because they can no longer live by themselves. It's a passion of mine to help these seniors, give them peace of mind, to get where they need to be through their life as they grow older. And 1 Million Cups has helped me with my business and my presentations moving forward, and I've enjoyed my time here today. Thank you.